Good morning, everybody. I'm going to do some drawing today. Not sure who's out there, but if you see me on any one of my 3 platforms, say hi. Just trying to get some things situated here. So, you might notice that some things are a little bit different. Some equipment has changed. I'm trying to we've got a couple of big shows coming up, so I'm trying to reevaluate all my equipment. You notice I have no mic now, right? But I do have a mic. It's just moved. So, we're getting all new lighting. There's all kinds of stuff. And so I've been changing the technology around, trying to get better and better and better. And it's like, oh, hi, Mom. It's been hard. It's been hard. So there might be some glitches. There are always glitches. But anyway, I can't wait because, first of all, the lighting in this is, to me, terrible. It's okay, but it makes me very flat. It makes me look very blotchy and washed out. So I've been working on that. But I'm curious about how my sound is. If my sound is, and of course, everybody's going to be like, oh, your sound is great. But there's this reflection in the room that I can hear in here, but I don't think you can hear on your end. So I'm curious about that. And all that technical stuff really doesn't matter because I'm going to draw for a little while. I've got a lot planned today for outside of this stream, so I'm going to end a little bit early today. Probably cut off around 11:30 because I've got some other things I've got to do. So sorry about that if you planned on hanging out the whole time. But I am going to draw for a little while, and I'm going to continue to draw on these cabinet cards. So draw along with me. Definitely jump in on that chat and say hello, and let me know you're out there. We had a really great. My sound is very clear. Oh, good. What would be better is if you had headphones on, because then I would know, right? Then I would really know if that reflection. What I mean by reflection is the slightest hollow echo sound, meaning as my voice bounces around this room, it comes back and hits the mic, a fraction of a second later, and it's just like this. It almost feels like, "Hi, Dan. Nice to see you." How are you doing, by the way? I was going to call you and see if you wanted to go for a ride today, but I have other things I got to do. So, oh, good. I'm glad I have nice sound. So anyway, should probably just draw and stop yammering on and on and on. So let me know if you're drawing with me. Let me know if you have some art going on. If not, I remember last week we had some people from Great Britain, Scotland. Somebody was cooking a roast, which was nice. I guess it's, much later in the day over there, obviously. So they're prepping for early dinner, maybe. Let's take a look at what I got going. I started sketching out this guy this morning. He's, I don't know what he's doing just yet. I feel like he's got this kind of newly built scaffolded thing going on. So we'll see how he fares with that. Don't love that camera. Is that good camera view? That's not bad. This little guy here gets in my way. Anyway, I'm going to draw on him for a little while. Definitely let me know what you're up to. Let me know how your Sunday is going, what you have planned today. And we'll see what we can do with this guy. It's nice to see you here, Dan. I went into the house looking like an absolute monster this morning. I had tucked all my hair into a hat and looked disheveled, but I was out at 7 a.m., call it. It was early. And I popped into the Oldwick General Store to get a breakfast sandwich thinking no one will see me. And sure enough, I walk in, there's no one there. But then 2 seconds later, of course, the only person who's up at that hour is someone I know. Walks in and they're like, "Oh, hi, Todd." And I'm like, ugh. Never leave the house. Never leave the house. Sealed my cards. Is it better to use watercolor pencils or your Caran d'Ache? Anything goes. You can, now that you've sealed them, you know, I would try not to flood them. If you got a good seal on them, it doesn't matter. But I would use a combination of both of those things. Because, okay, what I do is I use my Caradosh gouache. And then when I want to get in with some tight, poignant color detail in some of those spaces where like I want to tighten up a shadow, I'll go to the pencils. So, you know, play it however you feel. Where's my stuff? We want this guy, this guy. Of course. I have a feeling we're going to be not nearly as well attended as we were last week. Last week the weather was crappy. People were hanging out inside. This week, I mean, I'm working in a little while, out there in the world doing professional stuff, but I'm looking forward to getting out of the house. So... I had this idea that his collar, this, and it's not even a collar because he kind of disappears into this space, right? He's not even there. I like this idea that he is sort of planted in this box, this vitrine, and I kind of see this growth that covers most of his body and branches up and out past his face, you know, like a thicket almost that. And who knows, I might retract this in a little while, but I generally like that idea. Hi, Ben. Nice to see you. Glad you're here. Still experimenting with this playlist. By the way, I was talking last week about this this playlist that I'm using, which is royalty-free stream beats on Amazon. And it's okay. It's, you know, it's run of the mill. There's some stuff on there I don't like, but some of it's not bad. And I talked about the guy who made it. His name is Harris Heller. He's a YouTuber. He's, you know, very flashy. Got a lot of good advice. I mean, I like him. But he set out to make this playlist so that streamers would have something to use on their streams, and he makes a ton of money off of it. I'm doing well, Ben. Thank you. I hope you're okay. And so I used the stream, and then I popped the video onto YouTube, and I wind up getting DMCA'd for one of the songs. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So one of the songs has copyright on it, and I get spanked for it. So Harris, if you're listening, and I know you're not, but if you are, come on, man. So what are you guys up to out there? What are you working on? What's going on? What's new? We are wildly prepping for our 2 live upcoming shows that we have. Not the one this Tuesday night. This Tuesday night we've got a great show planned. That's a standard large glass show that we've got coming up. But we've got a reception that we're hosting at the Brownstone Art in Brooklyn. And we, of course, have the 100 in Art tour coming up at the 100 in Art Museum. We're hosting that reception, as you guys know. And so I popped over there to do a little test. Check out internet capabilities. Check out how things look like they're gonna roll. Things so far so good. We look good. Your cabinet card guy. Oh, there's JS Bark. Hi, new joiner. Happy to be here on a Sunday. Yeah, nice to have you. Of course, you've been on the large class. I remember. We just kind of hang out and draw on Sundays, so it's you know, it's either the type of thing that you just have on while you know, hang out, chill on the back porch. Sometimes people are, you know, doing the laundry. But you can also draw along, and I would love to know what you're working on. Talk through problems like, you know, technical problems with drawing, like materials, stuff like that. Sometimes we get into some good conversations around the materials that we're using, which I like. I mean, I get a lot of good recommendations from my viewers that are using things I've never used before. So, you know, that's always fun. Let's see if we can't get this to show this better. Comes the part where Todd drops the camera. That's better. We've got this young lass who's trapped in her bubble. She's been there for 2 weeks now. We're a little stuck on her. We're having a hard time figuring out how to handle her. So she's over here for now. I do like this kind of branched surround that this guy has growing up out of his collar. I want to get some color in here though to kind of contain it and make it pop a little bit. It's all a little bit blended together right now. Cabinet card that's going to become a clown. I don't know. Although that guy, I know the cabinet card you're talking about, and I think that's actually a really good choice. Let's see about switching up some cameras here. Mix up a little bit of a warmer wood tone. I think this is going to be something that's made more from like a wooden armature. Waiting for all the usual suspects to pop in. Some of you, of course, are already here. Part of me wants to start the stream a little bit earlier on a Sunday rather than go 10 to 12. Go, you know, maybe start at 9. Not every Sunday, of course, but it might be nice to get it, have it be an early thing where we have coffee together. You know, at this point, I'm already well into my coffee consumption for the morning. You know, I'm not going to have another one right now. But that could be something that'd be I think better off. Would you come? Would you be here if it was earlier? Is 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning too early? Oh, I kind of like where this one's going. On Sunday, yes, a bit. I think you mean yes, a bit too early, I'm going to guess. I don't know. I'm an early bird. Sometimes I like to lay some of these other ones out for inspiration. You know, I've got this guy here is kind of similar in that kind of way. I just sort of intuitively kind of started building this structure around his face and didn't really know where I was going. Some of it is logical in the way it bends around and wraps around his head, and some of it is not. This guy, I wanted it to be a little bit more, I guess, formal looking, but I'm not sure yet. Let's mix up some I got a little bit of a red-orange going in there, which is, you know, warming this up a little bit. One thing that works really nice on these cabinet cards is when you have a good gouache that's got really good opacity, because then the drawing really, you know, really becomes its own thing. You know, you can choose what to stick up on top of the drawing. And by being able to layer like that, you get this kind of dimensionality to it that, you know, really begins to work, I think. You love the paints. Which ones? The new Caran d'Ache, the gouache ones that you picked up? I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah, you know what they're, you know how they're great is when you really start to break up that brick with some water. You get in there and you dig around, and you really can up the ante on that opacity really beautifully. Unlike a watercolor, which, you know, with a watercolor and you've got the pans, you kind of dip in with a little bit of water, you loosen that pigment up a little bit, and the you know, and you get something. You get a light wash, you get the hint of color, you get a lot of translucency. You spend a little time though digging around in these gouaches, and you get this really heavily pigmented, gorgeously saturated color. Yeah, see, I like what's starting to go on with him. I love the fact that the warmth of that wood contrasts just enough with that sepia tone and has a kind of a naturalistic presence, but it also feels a little bit otherworldly. You know, like they become two separate things. There's just enough harmony. There's just enough coherence, I guess, is what I'm looking for. All right, let's see about let's mix up something to put. I want to figure out these sort of stick forms. I might actually do them in pencil. Yeah, let's do them in pencil. I'm gonna grab some extra implements. I'll be right back. I love the lines that run through his jacket. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I'm trying to make those like branches stuck underneath, you know, that form. Oh, and this is the song I got DMCA'd on. We're gonna just cut that off. Anyway, another funny thing is that I was gonna mention is, you know, like you see me using these Faber-Castell colored pencils, these water-soluble colored pencils, and you know that your 5-year-old daughter is a genuine artist when she's got 2 drawers filled with colored pencils from a lot of the lesser companies out there, you know, like Crayola, and those are fine companies. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but they're not my art materials. And every single time she goes to get a colored pencil, she goes for these. I think she just knows that they're better. So what are you gonna do? Definitely not gonna stop her. I think we're gonna eliminate the jacket just by getting these lines going on top. Of course, this is going to require a little bit of water later, but I just want to get some basics laid down here. Like this much better. Got a very cool show coming up Tuesday night. We're going to be digging back into portraits a little bit. Going to be looking at the work of Alice Neal, which I'm excited about. Somewhere here in the Facebook world, I'm fairly certain she's not watching, but I used to go to grad school with Alice Neal's granddaughter, Victoria. If you're out there, Victoria, say hi. That'd be pretty wild if she was here, right? Out of the 7 people I have watching, all of a sudden she pops up. Branches are funny things. It's tricky to draw them and not have them look contrived. Remember back when I was in high school, I had a mechanical drawing teacher, and he taught us how to draw in a way that kept the point sharp on the pencil. And so we would draw lines while rolling the pencil like this, so you didn't rest on the tip in one place for too long. It's a fairly effective technique, probably more for draftspeople than, you know. But what it also taught me was that there's a way to sort of vary a line when you're making marks that is really quite effective for a more sort of organic approach, a naturalistic approach, and for like branch work like this, it's brilliant. And so you'll notice that my line is a combination of moving the pencil, turning the pencil, and, you know, this kind of more fluid kind of line work. And then, you know, I'll go back and look for ways in which to make that sort of, I don't know, line up a little bit better or connect. So, you know, I overblew that. I worked that a little bit too hard. So I'll go back in and just pull it out. That's the beauty of a watercolor pencil like this, is I can just grab this and pick it right up. Of course, that's going to get really wet at first. And there might be a little bit of, I might affect some of the other branches around it, you know, by accident, by touching them with the water, but that's okay. Because part of what I love about an image like this, or any drawing for that matter, is the ghost images that appear from the working and reworking. It really makes for an interesting drawing. Because the drawing is more than just the image. The drawing is partly the mechanics and the elements in the process, right? The erasures, the little fragments of marks that maybe weren't intended but remained. I'm experimenting with some techniques in Photoshop to turn portraits into cabinet cards. So, you know, getting a sepia tone is easy, but softening it in the right way and sort of really making it feel like it's got that kind of, you know, that old world look. That's a different story. And then, of course, printing it is, you know, printing it is not hard to do, but then, you know, kind of making sure that the gradations and the staining and that kind of, you know, this card, when it was coated in its light-sensitive material and exposed to light, you know, basically had the benefit of a very sort of subtle, you know, exposure, long-term exposure. If your hand is too heavy in Photoshop with whatever tools you're using, you are going to make it really obvious really quickly that it's not what you're looking for. So still playing with that. I would love to would love to turn my friends and family and noteworthy figures into a cabinet card. Ben says, I heard that dog. Yeah, she is a handful, Ben. But she is about 85% love and sleep and 15% absolutely uncontained fury. You know, for a fairly stocky thing, a very dense and stocky thing with little legs, she can generate an amount of speed in this house that is frankly terrifying. So, gotta watch out for her. She'll take you down. So, you know, a lot of the work I'm doing here where I'm making this a lot more dense and, you know, on some level we have to obliterate it in order to build it back up. So we're going to have a mess. Not a mess, but we're not going to have everything we want in this section. It's going to look like it's too much almost. But I'll come in later on top of this dark with a little bit of a lighter, you know, white-based gouache and bring in some of the highlights, bring in some of the dimensionality. You know, this new mic that I'm using actually can really pick up the sound of the pencil on the cabinet card, which is kind of funny. It's super directional and sensitive. You know, you guys were always so used to seeing me with a Rode NT1 studio mic shoved right in my face. It was like right, you know, it was a little bit disruptive in a lot of regards. So, you know, as I'm learning here and I'm watching other people stream and I'm like, where's their microphone? Like I'm watching them without a mic and I'm like, they must be using a shotgun mic over their head. And then I got a chance to see somebody with their camera pulled back and I could see the mic up above them and I was like, oh, look at that. And so I had a mic, a shotgun mic that I used when I filmed a documentary a bunch of years ago and I had picked up a mic for that and I had that laying around. And so I pulled that out and mounted it just to see what would happen. And it seems to be, I'm turning my head, when I'm drawing, my head is down. Like it's, you know, like it's like I'm like looking like this and the mic is up here. So you can hear the difference from me talking like this, where my voice is reflecting off the desk. And then you can hear the difference when I turn my head up like this. Was a throwback look though, we'll miss it. Oh, well, I'm not necessarily saying I'm done with it. You know, I think one of the problems we had, David, and by the way, David, nice to see you. One of the problems we had with it was hard for Terry and I to see our notes on the desk when we were doing the large glass show, and we'd constantly be switching them around. Plus, their directionality is actually really quite sensitive. So if I turned to talk to Terry, or she turned to talk to me, all of a sudden the mic wasn't doing the job it was supposed to. So... oh, good. Well, I'm glad this sounds better. I think this might stick. Now, of course, we could go buy some antique studio mics and set them on the desk far enough away that you can see them, and it looks like that's what we're using. That could be fun. A little staging. David, that show, that Michelle Mackey show, if you guys are watching, go check out the brownstoneart.com. They've got a beautiful show up by a painter named Michelle Mackey, and it is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. She does this incredible thing where she's working between the realms of paint and these hints of vinyl, creating these edges in some of the paintings, and she talks about this thing that I loved about slow time and about geology and how rocks move on the planet, quite aggressively, but on a geological time scale that's very different from ours. And she's really quite an interesting painter. So we're going to be actually hosting her and the Brownstone Art on Tuesday night, April 27th. So definitely check that out. Oh, good. You like the idea of the mics. Maybe I'll do that. So now what's happened with this guy? Oh, good. Yeah, she should be. It's a beautiful show. Can't wait to get a chance to talk to her. I was going to say, this guy has sort of now been encapsulated by his little vitrine. And I feel like he needs to be, like I did last week, we kind of worked on this old gal, and she's potted up here, and she's got her stilted legs, and she kind of almost looks like she's mobile, which I kind of think is terrifying and funny and interesting. But I want to do that with him to some degree too. I want to give him a kind of connected mobility, as if these stilted legs could move. We had Theo Jansen was the subject of one of the subjects of our show last week. And he makes these creatures that walk on the beach on these really stilted legs. And so I've kind of been thinking about those stilted legs and how they move. If you have a chance, look him up. It's Theo, Theo. Jansen is Jansen. So Theo Jansen on the phonetic side of things. Oh, thank you, Jess. That's really kind. Yeah, I love that show. I think that work. It's funny how when Terry and I approach a show, sometimes she'll bring an idea for an artist to me, and I'll be like, oh, okay. And at first I'm like hesitant because it's maybe not the person I was thinking of that week. And then I dig in, and of course I'm in love with what we're doing, and it's fun. And that one was one I brought to Terry, and she was just kind of like, oh. And she saw the appeal, but then it wasn't until we kind of got rolling with it that it had a more, sometimes it takes time You have to spend time with the artist and the work to, have it do anything for you, All right, we're gonna get rid of these other legs that are not working, and we're gonna give him more of a something a little more mobile. I think we're slowly all finding our way back to some kind of mobility right now anyway. At least I hope we are. I think one thing I like about doing this stream is I've gotten over this kind of trepidation, it's very vulnerable drawing in front of people. It's a very vulnerable position you put yourself in, because I'll do something like this down here and I'll be like, God, that looks awful. And then I'm like, well, I guess we'll figure it out. There was a time when I would have been really afraid to allow someone to look over my shoulder while I was working, but now I feel like, I don't know, there's some value in it. All right, this guy's getting somewhere. feel like I want to dig in on this graphite aquarelle a little bit. Get some really sharp black lines in there. Now we're at that point in the show where I stop talking. It's like I get really invested, and then I realize I haven't spoken to anybody. Thinking a lot about art making and daily practice and frankly being alive and living in this country, and what it means to be in a place where you maybe feel, a little less valued or misunderstood, I guess is the word for what you do. It's kind of a strange thing, art is something that we, genuinely, I feel, as a whole, as a culture, and of course there are exceptions to this rule, right? But we don't understand it. And why is that? Why are we raised, in an education system that does not value this? Not value from the standpoint of, what's it worth? Because we do tend to gravitate towards that, right? When we become interested in an art story in the United States, it's because a Banksy sold for $90 million, or, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that side of it is exciting to me. It shows that it's alive and well, and there's an economy around it. But I don't know, when we talk about it on a more sort of everyday level, I guess I'm one of those people who's really idealistic and feels like, everybody should be making, or at least understanding how to, or at least thinking about visual culture more than we do. I mean, sure, we all think about visual culture, right? We're all flipping through Instagram or TikTok or whatever the case may be. And actually, I kind of am interested in that. I like that from the standpoint of, here's TikTok, this fantastic thing where people are dancing, moving, making interesting visual things. And okay, it's very pop culture. It's very sort of, it lives in a different world, but it's a good thing. It shows a kind of connection. But ultimately, from the standpoint of art making, I just have been thinking a lot about what it means to do this and how it's received. And I think it's one of the reasons why I'm on this stream, is to just try and see if people passing by will connect on some level. you know, and be like, what is that? Why is he doing that? And then come in and talk and all of a sudden say, oh, I feel like I understand this now. You know, it's okay to slow down and not identify everything in our lives with a kind of efficiency economy or a usage. You know, it's always about the usage. What are you going to do with that? You know, everything gets monetized or has to have some justification for its making, right? Or not making, but existence. Otherwise, it's, you know, it's funny. I had a studio visit when I was at RISD with Lauren Ewing. Lauren Ewing is like an incredibly famous artist, conceptual artist, and brilliant person. And she saw what I was up to, and I was involved in making these, you know, actually very similar to the structure here. I was making these very tiny scale lumbered tree houses that actually lived in these branches that I had brought, these beech branches that I had brought into the studio from Maine. I was building these tree houses in them, and I was meticulously scaling each piece of lumber, assembling it, making sure the joints were right. And I mean, it was creating these worlds, right? And she kind of shook her head, and, you know, she was like, no, you need to make it much more efficient if you're going to make it in this. Like, you got to figure out a way to either have this fabricated or automate it somehow. And I was just like, I was angry. I was going to say I was devastated. I wasn't devastated. I wasn't that invested in Lauren Ewing's work to be that affected by it. You know, if that had come from someone who was like, if that had come from Ann Hamilton was also in my studio, then I would have been devastated. Ann Hamilton was a different story, but Lauren Ewing like really made me like really frustrated. And so now it's like I think about these things that we make and the time it takes to make them and the value associated with the thing, because all the tenets of an economy don't add up to justify this thing's existence. And so what do you do as an artist? You spend all your time struggling with that notion. I'm rambling now. See, I wasn't saying enough, and now I'm saying too much. Studio Sunday, where Todd draws and overshares his frustrations and thoughts with the world at large. I'm no better than one of those talk shows. Be careful. I should be careful. David says, love when you ramble. Thank you. Thank you. You know, it's funny. You say you love when I ramble, and my mother, who I know is working on a cabinet card right now watching this, is just suspiciously silent. And I think she's probably mumbling to herself, here he goes. Here he goes again. I will say I'm starting to really like this guy. So that's good. That's worth something. Now, like I said, I am going to cut off early today. I have something I have to do, so I will not be carrying on till 12 today. I'll probably cut out around 11. I will probably cut out around 11:30. Let's get some more paint going here. Just a light lavender, really, really light lavender to give some highlight. And of course I can cut back in and give some drop, you know, like a little bit of a depth to this by undercutting these with some dark. In the end, I don't really care. I don't need it to be too literal. Well, okay, so Mom, one, can you actually go too far? I believe you can, right? And this is always the balancing act. But then if you do go too far, is there a way to sort of rein it back in by either pulling away, you know, maybe removing some material, using some water, because you're using a lot of water-based stuff, right? So you can actually wash it right out. So that's the first thing. And then you say that my clown is actually really scary. Well, what clown isn't? That tells me you've made a really accurate clown. Yeah, I still haven't figured out how to resolve that bottom area with this guy yet. He's still... I like the legs, but I didn't like the legs. They were, you know... I have this awful idea. You know, here we have this really sort of textured, vintagey kind of look, and I'm just dying to put a hippity hop underneath him, like a big, old, round, neon green ball. As if he gets around just by bouncing, which is absolutely ridiculous, but I kind of love the ridiculousness of it. That keeps coming to mind. I don't think I have enough room to really make that effective. Jenny O'Wave says yes, love the ridiculous. All right, well there's a vote for the hippity hop. I mean, this is ridiculous anyway, right? And I mean, it's not gonna say hippity hop. But what happens if we just sphere this in like this? Yep. Yeah. I think this is good. Good vote, Jenny. body of sculpture that I am trying to get back to. It's very difficult to find the studio time right now, and so I'm probably going to work on that in 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to start bringing that into this so I can sit down and actually... So that's going to be a little bit more dynamic with the cameras and things like that, because I'll have multiple camera angles on that, which could be kind of fun. If you think these drawings are strange. Those I'm having a really hard time wrapping my head around, but, you know, they work. I can't tell you why they work, but they work. Well, if I were a kid and I were at the toy store picking out a hippity hop and they had a green one, that's the one I would have picked. Now, I don't know where this is going to land ultimately, but let's just go with it and see what happens. Mom asking if she can actually go too far with her cabinet card. Well, here's an example of that. You know, just slam some paint on there and see what happens. Get some yellow in there. It's going to require a fair bit of pigment and then a really, really nice flow of water into this to sort of activate it and allow it to kind of make its own path when it settles. You know, like I would like to not have too much of a forced hand here. I'd like to see the suspension of the pigment in the liquid do its job. So I'm going to get a lot of pigment in here. And then I'm going to go back and just begin to add some water to this so that it becomes, you know, my brush strokes begin to disappear under the gravity. And now all of a sudden it's got a much more naturalistic kind of color in the way the color is applied. It's a little nebulous. I can push that yellow into a nice highlight here on the front. It's like electric. Now I don't feel so bad about my clown. Well, that's good. Because, I don't know. What did I do to this guy? I kind of love that. I think I need to push that globe around just a little bit. Feels a little bit off. That's a little bit better. Okay. Yeah, I dig him. Thanks, Ben. I hope so. We'll see. We will see. But again, it's just this kind of continued intuition. It just kind of... These things just... I didn't intend to make this like this at all today. I mean, I think when I first started out, I had an idea about a branch. But thanks, Jess. Great green. Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, I loved that. The way those two kind of flowed together, right? That yellow and that green and the liquid. Now, of course, it's going to take like, I don't know, 20 minutes to dry. But maybe we could get back into the same old here with her, because she's been a thorn in my side. I don't like this piece. It's really bothering me. You know, there's just something clunky about this whole thing. It's too rigid. It's too, I don't know. I really don't know. But maybe we can mess with her a little bit. See what we get. I think this one really needs that root system, like the way in which these branches kind of have this really thinned out, wispy kind of feel. I feel like this needs that. This does not have, it doesn't have that same contrast of line work in it. It's just clunky all over the place. I had this idea that I wanted to maintain this kind of translucency down here that sort of said, oh yeah, this is like a glass pill, right? And she kind of lives inside there. She's kind of rooted in there. There's, you know, some kind of weird symbiotic connection between the living head and this rooted system down below. But kind of trying to get that translucency feel right down here with, you know, this idea that this is glass and there's some kind of like liquidity to it. It just doesn't really want to, it doesn't want to yield. So we're going to obliterate some of what's there. maybe make it less. I'm gonna pick up some, because currently it's just way too dense, right? And maybe by pulling some away, we'll crack something open here. And I think we're gonna, I feel like this is the answer. When in doubt, let's just get it out of there. See, what's nice about this now is it's creating this really nice, look at that illumination in there, almost as if it comes through from the back. So that feels right. So I can go in over here. Just gonna agitate that old pigment a little bit. And dry out my brush and suck it right up. There's the dog again. The domestic terrorist. Some dogs bark at strangers. Some dogs bark at cars. Our dog barks at the clock. My scary woman has a castle on her head. Now that I want to see. That I want to see. Oh, you're making me realize that this, you know, if you remember correctly, 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe it was 2 months ago, I don't remember, but we were having a talk about having a cabinet card drawing collaboration workshop. And everybody was into that idea, and I've given it some thought. I've been thinking about, you know, how to pull it off logistically. I even mailed a couple of cabinet cards to get an idea of what it would cost for postage. And I think we should do this. And I think we should not only do this, but we should do it in a way where we have an online exhibition of the work. So, like I said, I'm going to put the details in place for this in a more solid manner very, very soon. But basically what it'll boil down to is, you know, I mean, for a very inexpensive fee, I'll send you a cabinet card. I mean, I've got a lot of them, right? I've got tons. So you get a random cabinet card sent to you, and then we all participate in a drawing workshop online together. And the results we could photograph, you know, obviously with certain parameters. And we put them together as like a show. I'll put them up on the website or something and just kind of, you know, have a little gallery of them. That could be fun, right? Jenny, it's a French Bulldog puppy. She's actually a riot. She's a riot. She's ridiculous. Todd, did you put a hint of white on the green sphere? That really adds a nice effect. No, what I did was I added some like a really, really high high value yellow to it. And then when I hit it with the water, they just kind of spread, giving it a little highlight. Yeah, Jenny, sometimes I have the dog, sometimes she pops in here and tries to get in my lap, so I throw her on camera. Not always, though. She sounds like she's occupied with a squeaky toy in the other room. All right, so this now is starting to sort of really become much more interesting to me. There's this luminescent glow from pulling the pigment out of this space, which, I don't know, feels like there's now a dimension there that there wasn't before. And I feel like now I've really opened up a space for that linear texture down below to begin to take hold. So I want to clean this up a little bit and then get in there. it's behaving in some spots and not in others. It's really kind of problematic in some areas, but it's really just a matter of agitating that pigment and then drying the brush out and plucking it out. And much like this one over here, where, you know, I was able to liquefy that yellow into the green and just give it that explosion right around where you want that highlight, in this, I'm able to agitate the pigment where I would want that highlight. And once I agitate it and put the dry brush in there, it gets lighter and gives me a very natural feeling, but dirty kind of highlight, which I think works really quite well. You know, and now she has, now the clunkiness of the outside of this almost becomes, you know, it's okay. Because we've got something else to kind of instill fear. Not fear, but curiosity. You know, we were talking about this notion of wonder on the show the other night when we were looking at Theo Jansen and Arthur Ganson. And there's a little line of white on the upper left. Oh yeah, you're talking about right there. That's actually a highlight from the water. There's a water droplet there, so you're seeing the reflection on that. That's not actual white. But that's not a bad idea to put some white in there. But we were talking about the idea of wonder on the show the other night, and how wonderment, for a human being to experience wonder, what that does. And it's kind of an interesting place for us creatively, because, you know, there's a cognitive spark that sort of is created with wonder, and it can be inspiring. Like, you know, the one thing I was reading about was the sciences would never have existed or continued without this notion of wonder. So one of the things that kind of drives wonder and gives us that sense is the tiniest bit of fear, and that is that fear of the unknown. But it's not enough fear to drive you away. It's a fear that sort of incites a curiosity. She's coming together now. I have a feeling she's going to be that one piece that I spend, I don't know, weeks coming back to, working and reworking. But it's starting, I think it's starting to happen. It's starting to kind of feel like it's doing something. Yeah, I feel like we're getting somewhere here. David, you're in on the cabinet card thing. Good. I'm just starting to look up in the... I missed a couple of messages there, so I apologize. Good. Yeah, I think we could get it would be fantastic if we get like 10 or 12 people that would be in on this, because I think we'd have a nice collection of work. All right, I'm definitely, so I have my schedule between now and May 2nd is just jammed. But after May 2nd, that is when I will solidify this. So why don't we say that, Cabinet Card Project is probably going to actually happen on the show, let's say end of May. That would give me time to get the word out, get the cabinet cards out. We could all work on them. Sometime end of May, beginning of June. Seems like it would be the workable thing. We could have a little session where, people that work on cabinet cards could, talk about their process, and it would be cool to have some people in. Oh yeah, all right. My gears are turning now. I've got some thoughts on how to make this more interesting. So, oh good. All right, well, it's almost time for me to call it quits for today. This is still a mile from being dry. I will post this on Instagram later today. Our little green. I'm really, really happy with him. I feel like he really turned out. He turned out all right. So, just kind of want to dig into him a little bit more, but I'm afraid to hit that liquid part. This piece here feels like feels like Van Gogh painted it. It's got that kind of weird color combo texture thing going on. Strange. I'm not being presumptuous enough to say that I can paint like Van Gogh. It's not my intention. All right, I think we're good. Between the two of these today, I think I've, new creation here, and a definitely feeling better about her. So good. I think we're in a good spot. So let me just quickly remind you that on this Tuesday night, we're going to be talking Alice Neal on the Large Glass Show at 8 o'clock on our Twitch channel right here. So join us for that. Definitely jump in on that chat. We've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. So on Tuesday night, April 27th, which will be the week after that, we are going to be at the Brownstone Art in Brooklyn with Michelle Mackey and her painting show there. So definitely join us for that, because we're actually going to have a live, in the studio artist talking to us about her work and this current show at thebrownstoneart.com. Then after that, Friday night, April 30th, we are going to be hosting the Hunterdon Art Tour, which kicks off at the Hunterdon Art Museum, and we are going to be hosting that. So we will be there. Hopefully all of our technology will be working, because I'm terrified, but I think it's going to be great. We're going to have a really good time. You're going to meet more than 24 artists on that show. Their studios will be open that following weekend, May 1st and 2nd. And if you're out here in beautiful Hunterdon County, New Jersey, you can drive around, stop in. Some do require appointments, but I'll get all that information out to you as we progress through the week. So I'm really happy you hung out with me today. I really enjoyed talking to all of you, as I always do. And I hope to see you back here next Sunday if you can't make it any of those other dates. So have a great day. The weather's going to be beautiful. And I will see all of you next time. All right, take care. Bye, everybody.